Okay, so good day. This is Barry Tayam, your host for Paraluman Podcast. Welcome, everyone. And tonight, Philippine time, and today, for maybe in Western time, we have our guest, Miss Jo Berry. Hello, Joe Berry. Can you please tell me something about yourself? Well, I heard a lot of things about you. I've done my research and I've also found out that you are a peace advocate. So can you
I
please?
am. I am. Thank you for having me on your podcast. What an honor. So I'm sitting in a little house in England, the UK, and I've spent most of my life since my father was blown up in a terrorist attack when I was 27. Back in the 80s, we had a group of terrorists called the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and most of the violence was in Northern Ireland. But sometimes there were bombs that went off in England, and sadly, my father, who was a politician, he was targeted, and he was blown up with 5 other people in 1984. And for me, it was like also I needed to respond to how it happened. I loved my dad, but I also felt that I was now part of a war. I didn't live in peacetime anymore. Before then, I felt I lived in peacetime. And so I chose to bring something peaceful out of the violence, out of the trauma, out of the horror. And I also made a commitment to not have an enemy, because I had an enemy the moment the bomb went off, but I didn't want an enemy in the world. To me, the world, I saw it as one global family, but that changed when the bomb went off. So it was a journey that started, and back in the 80s, you couldn't Google how do you bring something positive out of losing your father in a terrorist attack. There was no way to find out. No one around me understood, but somehow I did find a way. And especially when we finally had the peace process, when people who were enemies, they came together, and people came from America to help. They came from all over Europe to help. And we had a peace process. And part of the peace process, like many peace processes, meant that the political prisoners came out of prison early. So they were the former combatants on both sides. They were called political prisoners. And I remember the day that the man who was sentenced for planting the bomb which killed my father, he came out of prison in 99. So he would still be in prison now if we hadn't had the peace process. But he came out very early in 99. And that's when I decided that actually I needed to meet him. And it took a year and a half, but I did go and meet him in November 2000. So that is now 24 years ago.
Okay, so well, first of all, I don't know how to speak with, or how am I going to react. I mean, it's both amazing that you have the chance to talk, and at the same time, it's really sad and devastating about what happened to your father, like way back in 1984. Politics is really chaotic at some places. Even right now, it's still happening. But the thing here is that you being a peace advocate, that even after all of those things that happen to you, to your father, to your family, to your country, had this chance to meet the one who's really connected with, I mean, the one that really did that bad thing with your
Yeah.
father. So I'm just wondering, how did you have this courage, first of all, to meet that person, to talk to him, and to finally forgive him?
Well, I couldn't have called myself a peace advocate or a peace activist if I wasn't prepared to do the work. And it's emotional work. This isn't something that can be done in our heads. So I do think we can make the decision that we don't want to hate, we don't want to go for revenge, but there is emotional work, because for sure I felt anger over the years. I felt rage. I've felt that it was unjust that he thought that his need to be heard was so great that he killed my father. That is something that I'm still trying to understand, how someone can reach a point of thinking killing is a good idea. So it's been emotional, it's been difficult. But what I've done is that I've said to myself, I had no control over what happened to me. Like, I couldn't have stopped it. I didn't make it happen. It was out of my control, but I can choose how I react. And if I reacted with bitterness, with hatred, then I'd be hurt twice, once from what happened to me, and then secondly, that would be a cost to my own humanity and make me as what kind of person would I be if I'd become bitter? So the choice was then in a way easy to do, but the hard bit was the work, the actual emotional work. And when I went to meet him, I was scared. This isn't something that I just did thinking, oh, this is just a normal thing to do. No, this was horrendous. This was scary. There was no one there to support me. But I was determined. Now, when I went to meet him, I thought I'd meet him once and no one would ever know, because it would have been too much to tell people. So I was just going to meet him once. And that would be that. But what happened was that he came with the mindset of an activist, as a combatant, as someone who'd used violence for political reasons. Like, for him, they had no choice. They were the oppressed. There are many people in the world who use violence because they feel, there's no other way, and there's like kind of almost a righteousness about it. So he came with that mindset, and I did know he would do that, and I wanted to know who was he beneath all the labels he'd been given, because he at that time he was considered the most sort of evil terrorist we had. That changed after 9/11, but this is way before 9/11. And so I wanted to see his humanity. I wanted to see him as a human being, to humanize him. And I didn't need an apology from him. I didn't think I was going to get an apology. So I just wanted to look into his eyes. And I do remember when I did see in him that he cared, that he was someone's father, he was someone's son, he was someone's friend. He was more than the man who killed my father. And he cared deeply for his community in Northern Ireland. And I remember thinking, okay, I can leave now. This is more than enough for me. I built a bridge. We've created this bridge together, but it's a difficult bridge because he's justifying killing my father. So I'm going to go. And then he changed, and he would later say that he was disarmed by my empathy. And if I'd gone in there raging and ranting and blaming him and arguing, he wouldn't have changed, but he did change. And he began his journey, realizing that he'd very much seen the other people had dehumanized them. But now he realized that he dehumanized my father and the others in the hotel. Because when he planted that bomb, he didn't see a human being there. He didn't, because that's the nature of violence. That it was just a legitimate target. That's the nature of this kind of violence. Is he saw them as less than human, and then through meeting me, and I did talk about my father, he began to realize that my father was a wonderful human being, and he was responsible for killing him. And he never thought before he arrived about the cost to himself, or that actually there was impact. He'd just seen it almost like a kind of military operation with no emotions. And so that changed. And so that meeting then turned into us going public, and we've shared platforms together over 300 times. And we just had the 40th anniversary of the Brighton bomb, and we spoke together. I asked him to come and speak with me twice, once in London, the place where I'd made the decision to bring something positive, and then also in Belfast in a cathedral, and that meant a lot to me that 40 years on, he and I can talk about dialogue and the power of listening and the importance of not dehumanizing each other.
Joe, that is very wonderful. I mean, I felt everything from the start. I mean, from the start, the emotion like anger, frustration, I think it's normal.
Yeah.
It's some sort of validation for the feeling and reaction for that, right? And but the process that you had with him forgiving the things that you've done in the past is really not for everyone. I think you're aware with that. I mean, not every person could do what you have done. Not every person could forgive the persons that that kill your father, or if I cannot even forgive those persons sometimes if they just say bad things to me. Sometimes we have that grudge, right? I'm carrying
Yeah.
it for a long time. But yeah, based on what you have said, I mean, I think I'm learning a lot from you. And I also have this quotation that I used to read before. If you hold grudge to someone or somebody, it's like drinking a poison, thinking that
Mm.
somebody would be damaged, but it's not them, it will be just you. So
Exactly. You
yeah.
said it so well. That is it. Yes.
Mhm. And yeah, I think it's always the best thing to forgive, although I think it's impossible to forget, but forgiving could give you a lot of peace in your heart, in your mind. You could be a better person. You will not be bitter anymore, and you could do a lot of things, not just forgiving, but can inspire people, just like what you're doing right now. I mean, if you're influencing a lot of people, you've been doing peace advocacy, and a lot of nation, a lot of countries, group of people could really learn from you. Although we have this kind of same situation here in the Philippines, we had this actress, Miss Cherry Pie Picache. Almost the same scenario. I mean,
Wow.
situation that you had, and she called it radical love. I mean, as far as I could remember, her mother was murdered in their house, and she knew that person. I think that guy was a worker in their house, I think, or just or I think a family friend, and then she forgave that guy.
Oh,
And at first, a lot of people, a lot of Filipinos can't really understand, the things that Miss Cherry Pie Picache done to that guy. I mean, she even visited her in the prison. She
gosh.
brings, yeah, she brings food for him.
Mm.
And yeah, and then it before it was really confusing, but now it inspires a lot of people, just like what you did.
Mm.
Thank you
That's
very much for
amazing.
yeah,
She sounds amazing.
yeah. I mean, the
She
both of
sounds
you.
amazing.
Thank you very much for that wonderful, and very inspiring things that you've done. And I'm just wondering, may I know the guy's name again?
Yes, Patrick Magee.
Patrick Magee. Okay, so how are you with Patrick Magee right now? Are you still talking?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were together 2 weeks ago,
Oh,
and I'm hoping we're going to be speaking next year. I'm waiting to find out if he's agreed up in Scotland. Um, so we're friends. You know, it's an unusual friendship. We're friends. We're friends because I care about him, because I've traveled to places where he's the only person I know. You know, and we've given each other support. And 24 years is, it's a long dialogue. It's a long time to get to know each other. So he knows me very well. I know him, but it's also can be difficult. So I call it sort of an unusual friendship, because I tend to meet him when we're traveling, when we give a talk. So this year we traveled to Austria and Switzerland together in Europe, and I know I've sort of sat next to him on the aeroplane, and we've been chatting, and I sometimes look around at the other people on the aeroplane and think, you've no idea what our relationship is. Like people we're not recognized, so people don't know. And I sometimes myself just think, who would have thought I'd been in an aeroplane? There's just a moment where I'm shocked that here I am sitting with him, talking like friends. Maybe he's doing a crossword puzzle, and maybe I'm doing a puzzle. We're helping each other. Well, he always helps me. I can't help him because he's much better at crossword puzzles, but we're having like a normal conversation, and I have a moment of thinking, how did this happen? How did I do this? So sometimes it almost surprises me that we are having this kind of conversation.
Wow. Joe, I'm trying to digest everything that I just heard right now. So you were friends with him, you travel with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like not just in talking terms, but you're really a close friend, like best friend. Like you travel different places. But how did it start? I mean, how was the feeling on first time traveling with him? How that happened?
Well, at the beginning, things happened slowly. Like it took a year to go public, and then once we went public, people started asking us to speak. But I don't think we didn't do anything international, probably for a few years, and then we were asked to go to maybe Austria was our first place we ever went to, and then we went to Lebanon, and so it's happened very, very slowly. But at the beginning, I just remember there was such a intensity in the energy, it was so, I can't really describe it. It was very intense, and it's not quite like that anymore. It's still not normal, but it's not quite that intensity, and at the beginning, I was always a bit worried about being with him because who would see us, especially before my family found out. But then, of course, I told my family when we eventually did go public, because I wanted to support them and protect them. And that's another thing about this work, is not only is it emotionally difficult work, but also it's difficult for people around you as well. You may not feel the same way, and I've always taken great care to protect my family and listen to them, but at the same time, I have gone public, and so they've seen me on the TV with the man who killed their father. That's for my siblings. So, and they don't have the same need that I do to do this work. I love them, they're amazing, but they don't have, they're not motivated in the same way I am motivated. But they've given me their blessing, and we're close. We're definitely close. So now that it's 40 years on, I've been thinking a lot about, especially the last 24 years, but the whole 40 years, and actually, this might surprise you, but I feel grateful. Not that my father was killed, for sure. I'd rather he wasn't killed. That goes without saying. But I'm grateful, for what's happened, for the opportunities I've had to make a difference in the world, the places I've been to. Hopefully I'll come to the Philippines one day. I love people wherever I go. I just love it. Everywhere I go, this is the best place. And then I go to the next place and think, oh, this is the best place. I just love people wherever they are in the world. And we've all experienced trauma. We've all had conflict. We're all wounded from what's been going on in the world. But the skills I've learned inside myself as well, like listening, you think, oh, that's easy. You've got two ears, you listen. But actually, the more you think about listening, the more there is to know about listening, and also communication as well. There's so much to learn once I decided to not blame or shame people, because I don't think blaming or shaming people, like wagging my finger, really helps. So I'm trying to understand how to communicate without blaming and shaming. But I'm human. I have emotions. I have anger. I can get upset. So there's so much to learn. And I think that I wouldn't be in a place now where, I can facilitate workshops. I can teach these skills. I can talk about it. I can show people what's possible. I never tell people what to do. I'm not that kind of person. It's an offer, always an offering, but I wouldn't have learned everything I've learned without making that decision. So that's the thing. Every time we make a decision to not, as you said, not drink the poison, not be bitter, then there's always gifts that come. There's always bonuses. Life becomes in a way more meaningful. Does that make sense to you? Right?
Yeah, I mean, you're
Yeah.
making a lot of sense, Joe.
Good.
I mean, But I'm just kind of wondering. I just want to go more into detail about. I mean, the reaction of your family. I mean, I think
Mm,
it's you been doing a lot of things about your advocacy as well, about
mm.
forgiving people. You're hanging around with Maggie, and how was
Yes.
the initial reaction, and how's your family right now? Are they okay with you? I mean, are they still also friend with Patrick, or it's just you?
Oh, okay, so it's completely just me,
Oh,
and
mm,
yeah, and I never talk about my work or my work with Patrick Magee unless people ask, because I'm aware that it could be sensitive for them. So I don't impose it. So if any of my family ever come to me and say, Joe, tell me what you're doing, I'll tell them. But otherwise, I don't need to tell them. My need is to make sure that they're okay, as much as they can be with what I've done, recognizing that this is deeply challenging, what I've done. We're very, very close, and I love them to bits. And we were all together for the anniversary at my dad's grave, and we went to a restaurant. It was beautiful. And no one asked me about my work, and that's how I like it to be. And when I did tell them, it was a shock, because I had to say to them, not only have I met him for a year, we're going to be on the TV next week. That's a difficult conversation to have with someone. And they were amazing, and they understood, and at the same time they may not all agree with what I've done, but there is an acceptance and an understanding, and I think that's beautiful. That's a gift.
you're very right. Since I mean, we could have a lot of people that we knew, but not all of them could be friends with us. We can sometimes we disagree, but it doesn't mean that we're no longer friends, right? It even
Yeah.
happens to our relatives, to our friends, any family members. Sometimes we just ignore those things and thinking that blood is thicker than water, or it just happened that if there were bad times or bad communication or being upset with someone, somebody inside your house, sometimes we don't say sorry anymore. It just happened that we just stop and act normal, like we're still family no matter what, right? And on that part, I also understand the feelings, of your family, sometimes your friends. It's okay that we cannot always please everyone. We cannot
Yeah.
always ask them to do the same things that we always do, or like things that we want to do or we like to do. And it's okay. Since we are
Yeah.
all different, we are unique,
Exactly.
have our own uniqueness. We have our own
Exactly.
strength, different strength and weaknesses as well. So that's very wonderful. I'm learning a lot here, to be honest, Joe. You're
Oh,
teaching
thank
me a
you.
lot here. I mean, me being new to this type of conversation. I've never had met somebody like you. Like, I mean, same story like you. It's really different and unique. And having this conversation with that actual person who've experienced it, I'm learning a lot, to be honest. Thank you very much for this. Anyway, I would like to go into like more details on the effects of your advocacy in terms of politics, in terms of nation building. So I also have questions. I brought questions from our productions, and I would like you to ask here. I mean, I think it's about your family here. So if we look back at your ancestry on your mother's side, your great grandfather is James Roach. Am I pronounce it right? James Roach.
Hmm.
James, third Baron Fermoy of the Irish Nationalist Federation, which is a nationalist political party in Ireland, right? Have you ever used this fact about your ancestry to get Patrick to be more considerate towards you?
No.
Okay,
No, I love that. I've never been asked that question. I love that question, but no, I haven't. No.
okay. So I think it's just very deep
But it's
kind of
interesting.
question that I have.
Yes, I mean, I have Irish in my background from my mum's side, as you've discovered. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And I also have here the production team of this podcast did some research on your charity. So building bridges for
Mhm.
peace on the program of projects outside the United Kingdom page of charity's website. It says that we have already received invitations to work in Colombia, Basque Community country, Bosnia, Israel and Palestine, Philippines, East Timor, Rwanda, DRC, Cyprus, Lebanon, and India. Which person or institution from the Philippines had invited your charity when the page was first written, if that's okay for you to disclose?
Okay. Um, right. I actually can't remember right now. So that could be
Okay.
my age and all the decades of doing this work. Because I'm wondering whether I would have done that before I first found your amazing group here and did the work with the empathy. So, okay, I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I think maybe it's coming back to me. I have given a talk before, but I'm actually not remembering, so I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay for me. So one last political question, Joe. Do you
Fine.
think the power sharing arrangement in Ireland is something other countries should implement into their governments in order to prevent situations where a political party with a majority mandate abuses its power?
Um, well, I'm a great believer in dialogue, and that when we tend to see one group as the good people and one group as the bad people, I mean, that's very simplistic language, but that's usually what it comes down to, and us and them, when we start othering people, then I think violence could come on the arena, maybe not straight away. So for me, the importance is always having dialogue, always listening to each other, always caring as much about the party that are different as your own party. Now, I don't see that happening in the world at all. I don't, even in Northern Ireland, there's huge political problems, even in the shared assembly, and it's not a model yet of the kind of empathy that I believe in. There's still like one party that thinks their people are more important, their needs are more important. And I think to really change our world to make it more peaceful, we need to care about the people who have different beliefs to us. So we had politicians who had the vision, because I think it is a vision we're talking about, so they could embrace the needs of everyone, even those who haven't voted, even those who come from different nationalities, actually see their humanity, see their needs, and have empathy with them. Then I think our politics would look very different, have more compassion in it, more understanding, less sort of judgment. But I don't really see that happening. And maybe it is happening in parts of the world, but I've yet to find it. It's much more about adversarial, like, we're the ones who are right and you are wrong, and we're going to tell you why you're wrong, you know.
Thank you for that, Joe. I mean, I've been kind of interested with your political stance, although your political background is really different compared here in the Philippines and
Mm.
from UK as well. I'm interested as well since I'm into politics right now since I am running for Congress here in our
Oh,
country. Yeah.
congratulations.
So far, based on my research and based through some other news, I am the youngest congressional district representative
Wow.
aspirant in Metro Manila or the National
Wow.
Capital Region here in the Philippines. So if ever elected by 2025, I could be the youngest congressman at the age of
Amazing.
29. Yeah, I'm turning 29 on January. And speaking of politics, some of my rivals right now, they are
Mm.
having some heated moments, arguments, right? I
Mm.
mean, even happen sometimes in public places or even
Mm.
in church. So
Mm.
I have these two political rivals named Cynthia and Mark. They had an argument inside a church. I mean, it's not I think it's not a pure argument. It just happened that Cynthia seems so upset to Mark and she pointed her Mark. She said, I think some nasty things against him. and based on the interview of Mark, and Mark was just sitting. I would like to compare this, I
Mm.
saw some videos or interview. I think that you had a talk with Patrick Magee inside a church. I think it's at the St. James Church in Piccadilly
Yeah.
and Clonard Monastery in Belfast. So,
Hmm.
I mean, if you would be given a chance to speak with Cynthia and Mark on having maybe not that good conversation inside the church, what would you advise them?
Well, I think wherever we are, having that kind of argument is not productive, and one of the things I facilitate is how to have a conversation without making someone wrong, without making someone less than you. And it is a skill, I don't think we're born knowing how to do that. And our human nature is very much to kind of go judging and to blaming and, and arguing. And letting our anger get in the way of listening, and but I think there are ways, and I have had conversations with Patrick where I have challenged him, but in a way, hopefully, that still allows him choice to change. I don't believe, and I'd like to know what you think, that if we force people to change, either through our words or through violence, then I don't think the person's feeling very good because they've been forced to change. They didn't change because they wanted to. So I'm interested in how do we change people so they actually want to themselves. And as a politician, I'll be interested in what you think of that. And to me, that is about bringing empathy into the heart of the conversation. So recognizing that you may not agree, but you understand they're trying to meet their needs. They're trying to do their best. From their position, it makes sense. It may not make sense from where you're coming from, but you can find out more about, I quite often, when people are very angry to me, I go, you've obviously got a really strong opinion about this and it's different from mine, which is fine. Can you tell me, how did you get to that place? And then you hear their story. And then when you hear people's stories, it's no longer an argument, like you're understanding what's led them to think that.
Thank you very much for that, show. Well, yeah, I mean, it's very articulate. I mean, I also did my research on what really happened there. I even asked their camps or their friends or their supporters. Well, it turns out that Cynthia just got upset to Mark since, I mean, she said that I think Mark is paying for the media to tell something not good about Cynthia and her family. And then when Mark was trying to shake hands with her when they met at the church, I mean, Cynthia told him that you cannot shake hands with me. I mean, you're paying the media to go against or put not so good articles about me, my family, my business, and my political career. So I know. I mean, I just knew where Cynthia were we're having some emotional things. I mean, she's just being emotional about that. And Mark was, I don't know. I mean, he's the guy there, and I think he even had the sympathy of the people since he did not say anything or he did not respond not that good during that time. But I mean, during the interview, he said a lot of things about what happened. Well, I respect them both since they've been serving our nation, I mean my district, our
Mm,
country for almost 2 decades.
sure.
And yeah, you are very right in terms of, you ask or you learn what does that certain person or where that person coming from when showing that kind of emotion. But at the same time, in
Mm,
relation to that, Joe, right
yeah.
now we're having issues for those officials like our president and our vice president. Bongbong Marcos, our president, and Sara Duterte, our vice president. Sara Duterte were giving, I mean, death threats against the Marcos family, against the president. So, do you have any opinion about this? I mean, in relation to what we've talked about, you speaking terms inside the church with Patrick, and about Cynthia, about Mark, and now with our president, BBM Bongbong Marcos, and Sara Duterte, our vice president.
Mm. Well, not really, but what I know is that from the little time I've met you is that you are extraordinary, and as a politician, when you're Congress, you'll be amazing. I think you've got a deep understanding of human nature, and that as someone who understands everything we've spoken about and bringing that into politics, you'll make a difference. Like I wouldn't feel I know enough to make an observation about the Philippines because I don't know. I'm here to, I guess, learn and support you in whatever you need to do, rather than like making kind of observation or judgment. I wouldn't feel able to do that.
Okay, I understand with that. Even me, I think I don't have the rights for them to tell what to do, but I think I would have the rights to ask as a Filipino citizen, just to have a peaceful conversation so that the people will not
Yeah,
be divided. Yeah, or I mean,
totally.
we don't want any troubles or chaos. It will
No.
never help the country right now. We have, I mean, a lot of problems to face than
Mm.
being divided. I think they still have to work together. But I've heard some news that Bongbong Marcos or our president is, just trying to fix things with her right now. So
Yeah. Well, that's good.
yeah, we're just gonna
And
wait for.
sometimes, when there are problems, it's good to bring someone else in as well, an intermediary to help when communication's broken down, when things are tricky, when there's emotions. It's good to sometimes bring someone else around. Like that's not a sign of weakness. In fact, to me, it's a sign of strength to say, I'm having problems. It doesn't have to be political, it could be anyone, having problems communicating, and I want to work on it now, and someone else can kind of help as well.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Thank you very much for that show. Well, right now, I mean, for me, tomorrow I've been summoned by my school or my alma mater since I've squealed a lot of things from my school. I had some criticism about their policies. Some were happy, some were supportive of me, and some were upset with me.
Oh.
And instead of making more trades against the administration or against our mayor or somebody else or the administrator, they summoned me and I'm willing to attend, the meeting. I have to meet with them, I have to talk with them and make things work in a conversation in a peaceful manner so that, here I'm just talking or fighting for the rights that I believe for my fellow constituents, my I
Mm.
mean co-scholar. And it's my
Mm.
alma mater. I love it. I will never ruin its reputation. That's why I'm going into a talking terms with them by tomorrow. But
Mm.
some of my supporters, they don't want me to go there. I mean, they told me that it could be a risk. So, I mean,
So
can you
how do
give
you
me any
feel?
advice?
Well, how do you feel? I think that's what I want to ask you.
I
How do you
mean,
feel about it all?
well, for me, I think they should address the issue to their students, not
Mm.
to me privately. They should address it publicly to the parents. And although I don't see any reason why would you want to have a conversation with me in private, if we could just address it publicly. If these are true, or are you going to make solution
Mm.
out of it? Since I've been exposing things that are not really good for the image of the school, of our city government. But I think it's the right time to do so that people will be aware
Mm.
of what are these people been hiding to them or been doing behind their back. So, I
Mm.
mean, I don't see anything wrong about that. Although some other people would say that there is something wrong with that since you're creating a chaos. But I think it's the right of the people to know what's really happening in my city.
Yeah, I really see your need for justice, your courage, and your determination. So I support you in what you're doing, and I trust you that you'll know you do know what's best, and you have a mission, you have a plan. And I think when people are upset with you, you're kind of okay with it because yourself well. It doesn't affect your own kind of self-esteem if people are upset with you. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, I've been prepared for that since
Yeah.
politics. It could be two sides. Yeah, there will be people that would support you and there will be against you. I
Mm.
mean, just like in your situation, I think not everyone would agree with your
No, no.
relationship, with your friendship with Patrick Magee right now. And I mean, I'm just wondering, how are you reacting to those people who are not, I mean, in favor of you being friends with Patrick?
Yeah. Well, I think we got this similar, that once you put your head, above the horizon and go, this is who I am, whether it's politics for you or what I've done, then there are people who are not going to like it, and even like, when was it? Well, in October, yeah, I got the most hateful email. I mean, it was full of hate and vitriolic and bitterness, and it was nasty, and I thought, well, this is really interesting, that this has generated such a strong message. So I started thinking, I don't know whether it was female or male, but it was anonymous. But I imagine they've got their story, they've been hurt, they've got their trauma, and I know I'm safe. I have had death threats. I mean, death threats these days are quite common on social media, but I did have, like, back in the 80s, not recently, and I know I'm safe, and I know that my self-esteem, how I see myself, my self-worth is not dependent on whether people like me or not like me. Like, I'm not attached. If people say to me, Joe, what you've done is wrong, that's fine. This is an experiment. I'm quite happy to listen why people find it difficult, because it is difficult. It's far more normal to go for revenge. But there's that part of me that's trying to change the future, and I'm very driven. But there's definite space for people to disagree and in a negative to it. I mean, I hope they're respectful. I don't like people to cross boundaries, and I will protect my boundaries. But at the same time, it doesn't affect who I am. Now, it would have 30 years ago. I haven't always had a strong self-esteem, and I think to do this work and the work that you're going to do, we need a very strong self-esteem. We need a strong core of us that knows who we are. And then when people criticize us, it doesn't damage that sense of self, and that we've also got a very strong support system in place.
You're very much right, Joe. So, I mean, you also receiving, I mean, death threats. I mean, how come that you have death threats, that you're just doing the right thing, you're forgiving the person, you're spreading and peace, you're doing advocacy. So that kind of gesture still receiving death threats. It's I
No,
mean,
not death threats, but just
hate.
sometimes very angry
Mm,
emails.
yeah, I mean, well, for me, I mean, yeah, I think me being a neophyte in the politics, I think I don't know how to handle all of it, I mean, the anger or the destructive criticism. But you were right when you were telling that, but it's all about your self-esteem. As long as
Mm,
you're confident and you are always willing to stood up, fight for the dignity, to fight for what is right, to
yeah.
fight for people. So it's really inspiring. It really helps me a lot. And although I'm facing a big challenge right now that would start tomorrow, so we don't know what would
Oh,
happen. But I'm hoping for the best in
yeah,
a very
me too.
peaceful way. Yeah.
I'll be
So
thinking of you tomorrow, and I really, really hope it goes well.
Yeah, I mean, you can add me on Facebook. It's my Barry Tayam. You can be updated with my activities or mga
Okay, great. Let me know.
political
Yeah,
stuffs that I do. I mean, yeah.
yeah.
So I think we're almost time. It's 7:39 p.m. here, and I think we only have 5 minutes left before. So, just one last question. Um, if you have any more light-hearted questions, sorry, I'm having issues with my notes here. So, do you have any message for Patrick right now?
Oh, for Patrick. Um, I look forward. I hope he's going to agree to give the next talk with me in Scotland, and I'll see him there. And that I'm grateful to him for continuing the dialogue because I think it's actually more difficult for him. So I appreciate him carrying on coming back for more. And that I don't think we're finished yet. I think even though we've been doing this 24 years, we haven't reached the end of it. There's still more to learn from each other. There's still more to find out.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, before I let you go, I mean, I miss a question a while ago. So,
Mm.
I think you already told it, but I just want to hear it again. So, you and Patrick have taken trips together to different countries and even within the UK and Ireland for
Mm-hmm.
speaking tours. And have the two of you been mistaken for a typical pair of friends or even a couple by person that both of you run into who were unaware of how the both of you met?
Um, yeah, no, people, they don't, when they see us together, they don't know who we are, like, but I also remember really early on when we were in Belfast, someone coming up, we were walking down a street and someone coming up to Patrick and putting his hand on his shoulder and saying, well done for the Brighton bomb, and then walked off. And that was really, he didn't know that who I was. That was a very odd one. So because people were congratulating him for what he did, because some people saw him as a hero, so that was odd. Um, but when people hear us talk, they sometimes say, it doesn't matter what you say, the fact that you two are sitting together, being respectful, that's enough. It's just because most of the time you have models of people who are sitting together and they're angry with each other, or they're not even sitting in the same room. We need more models of that, what I call this unbounded empathy. And especially in politics, we need to get former enemies together, people who are enemies together in the world as well. We need to have dialogue between different leaders. And we need to find a new way of communicating so that we have more understanding of the impact in each country and try to get policies that meet the needs of all the countries in the world. That's my hope for the future of the planet. Not that you've asked me, but I just thought it just came up to me as a thought.
Thank you very much, Joe, for your time today. Okay, so once again, this is Paraluman Podcast, and this is Joe Barry, our special guest, and this is your host, Barry Tayam. So I think we could just conclude this. So thank you very much for your time.